Check, check. Howdy, everybody. Welcome to Step into the Portal. My name is the Brandt. Thanks for joining me for this impromptu live stream. I wanted to try out some new things on the channel, and I thought I've done this on the podcast before, the Portal Gaming Podcast, where I've gone through the top 100 games on Board Game Geek, and I thought it'd be fun to do, and as I do things live, and I wanted to kind of, I guess for me, I'm not super quick with technology, so I wanted to practice the, like, using OBS to bring in a website so I can show a website at the same time, which I know tons of people do, and so just something I could learn to do, and I thought it'd be a fun thing to kind of talk our way through and whatnot. So that's what we're going to do here. If you are joining me, you can throw some things in the chat, and I'll try to check on that as well. I think if I make a new window... I'm actually not even sure where I do that or how I do that. You know what? I'm just going to put it on my phone, and then I'll be able to see the chat on here and catch up with people if they happen to be joining me. I'm sure there'll be people in and out as we go here. So, all right. Perfect. So feel free to throw some things in the chat there for me if you see them. And this is actually something I feel like I have pretty good knowledge of. So obviously, I see a lot of different board games on the channel and other things. But I don't know how much people know about these. I mean, this is just a website to be able to help you, but I played most of the games on the list, so I think that should be pretty helpful to people that I can go through those and whatnot. All right, so without further ado, if you've never been to Board Game Geek before, you know, maybe board games as a whole isn't your thing or whatever, or going to websites isn't yours. So here's the Board Game Geek website homepage. And it's, you know, it's generally nice. They've done some things to update and change and whatnot actually recently. So you'll have that, boardgamegeek.com, excuse me. And you can scroll down and you can see all sorts of things on here as well. I'm just checking here that I see all that working. So they'll have little articles and things related to them. W. Eric Martin writes for them a whole bunch. Aldi is the person who kind of owns the site, head person there. And then you'll see the hotness. So these will be the big games. So Heat, I haven't had a chance to play. It's a racing game. Frosthaven, we obviously played on the channel, and I'm absolutely loving it. And Trespass is a new Kickstarter game or crowdfunded game that came in. So you won't probably see a lot of those from me. Companies typically have to send those to me. I'm not somebody that backs crowdfunding projects easily. Arc Nova was my favorite game of 2021. Really came to North America in 2022. But yeah, and that won a Dice Tower Award. Flamecraft, I think, was the Dice Tower People's Choice Award, you know, currently right now. And we just played this on the channel. I think the last stream I did with my wife. Endless Winter was my #1 game of 2022. Skyrim, I've seen. We're selling this at the store. We have a demo copy, so at some point I can probably get that. Kind of an interesting game to play because it's a campaign-style game, so I would play one part of a campaign. But we did it with Frosthaven, so I might do that or at least get a play of this, and then I can talk about... I'm thinking about doing live reviews, and this might be a good game to do a live review of. Then we got Wonderland'S War here. This was my #2 game of 2022. Absolutely loved it. I did rate my games before I got a chance to play Frosthaven. I would say that this would end up my #1 game. I adore it. So that would make this 2 and this 3. And you'll see other games here. Splendor Duel, Dune Imperium, just played Wayfarers last night. And then some other popular games really like this. Toletum, Wingspan is on here, so you'll see. And then you can scroll down and they've got all sorts of other things. But the feature we're going to use is if we browse here and go to all board games, then it will bring up their games and it will bring up the top 100 games. They'll be on this opening page. So we'll scroll to the bottom and you'll see I've rated almost all of them. And I'm going to go through and rate any of the ones that are newer that I haven't rated yet, or perhaps they're older and I've never played them. So, yeah, I mean, the whole process of getting through these games and, you know, reviewing them, et cetera, can be a little bit, you know, divisive in terms of who decides and how is it. But essentially, users enter their value in there. Sorry, I was trying to get this up on here. Users enter their, you know, information, what they find interesting or think, you know, what games they're enjoying. And then there's an algorithm, which apparently is unknown to all of us, how they do it. And There's probably some Bayesian scales where they feed it some numbers and then it goes from there. And there's a lot of divisiveness over, like, can you rate a game that you've only played a prototype on tabletops and all this stuff. So anyway, the rating system is a little up and down and whatnot, but I think it's a good place to go to look at. It has in the past tended to skew towards heavier games, sometimes lifestyle games, sometimes just big, long, or really heavy, thinky games, so it doesn't have some of the lighter games in there, but that's just the user base and how it goes. So, all right, without further ado, I'm going to go pretty quick because I think talking about 100 games will actually take a while, and I don't really want to be here longer than an hour talking about this. So, Tigris and Euphrates, this thing is going to slide off the list. This was number one. I think BGG came around in 2000, and somewhere in the early 2000s, this was the number one game on Board Game Geek. It's a pretty cool game. It's Uwe Rosenberg. Nope. It's Rainer Knizia, who, if you don't know, he's designed over 700 games. He's an absolute prolific designer. It's a really cool game. If you get a chance to play it, I say do it. What this game kind of famously did is you're scoring for different colored cubes, and your score is the lowest of those. So it's making you balance everything out, which is really neat. Lord of the Rings, Journeys in Middle-earth, and some of these I'll click on, but I think as we get closer to the top, I'll click on some of them so you can see the pages for them individually. So Lord of the Rings, Journeys in Middle-earth, that's a really cool game. This one, I felt like I played this through a whole campaign 2-player, and I did feel like there was a lot of focusing on the app, and it made it harder to do that, but it's got a really neat mechanisms. I think if you're into Lord of the Rings, this is really cool. They did a great job of, you kind of do a quest, and then you do, a battle. There's even some story missions that are like deduction. So it does a good job shaking things up. I think it's had 2 expansion boxes, and there's DLC style other campaigns that you can get because it has modular boards and stuff. So again, if you're into Lord of the Rings and you're down for a campaign and you don't mind using apps, I think it's a good one to check out. So this one I rated an 8. This one I rated a 7.5. I'm generally going to keep things the same. Some things might change. Eldritch Horror is very popular. People really like Cthulhu. I've never really been one into Cthulhu. Personally, it's not been something that's caught me. So Eldritch Horror is a cool adventure game, but this one tends to skew long. It has a lot of die rolls. It's you need a 5 or a 6 for a success, and that can throw me off just a little bit. Is my sound good and everything for people who are watching? I just want to check that when I have a web page on, sound and everything is still happening. Imagine people would say, we can't hear you if that was the case. So just let me know so I can check some of those things. So I rated it a 6. I think it's fun. I could even drop that to a 5 or a 5.5 perhaps. But I think a 6 is fine. I would play it if somebody else was suggesting that was the idea. Raiders of the North Sea is kind of the darling of all these trilogies. There's Of the North Sea. There's, Of the Western Kingdom, and now Of the South Tigris. I just played Wayfarers last night, and that was generally enjoyable, although not as much fun as I think we had hoped it would be. But this one is a real classic. It's really cool. It's double worker placement. The other game that does that really well is Madeira that I like, and Madeira is a heavier. This is a lighter version of that game, or of double worker placement. So really neat, but you get to place a worker, do the action, then pick up another worker and do the action there. I would rate that an 8. I would say that's about the same. Trois. So this is kind of a classic game. This is, who's the designer here? I know they made Black Angel and a few others. Oh, is it going to be slow loading the page for me? So we'll see these here, and it's Sebastian Desjardins, Xavier Georges is who I'm thinking of, and a bunch of other people that worked on this. But yeah, so this is kind of an older Euro. This is going to slide out of the top 100 soon, I think. It's still really neat. I think this game's pretty relative. It's got a whole dice system, and then you can buy dice off of other people. It's a very interactive, Euro strategy game, if you're familiar with that Euro term. But it's got a lot of interaction. I would say definitely give it a try. So this would probably drop for me to an 8, because my wife, the last time we played it, my wife didn't like it. And so that's just going to make it harder for me to get played. I know some people don't like that. Rate it based on what you think, but it was there. I think I really enjoy this game. It's got, you have hidden goals that you're trying to achieve, and everybody scores them. Still a really solid game for me. Dominion Intrigue. I guess this must be for all Dominion, is really how I would rate that. Dominion is kind of considered the original deck builder, although people fight that all the time, that there were other games. But, it definitely made deck building very popular. So deck building is a mechanism where everybody generally starts with the same or a very similar deck, and then you acquire cards as you play the game. So unlike something like Marvel Champions or Magic the Gathering, where you build the deck ahead of time, those are we're called deck builders too, because you're building your own deck. But this is where you're building the deck during it. I think Dominion is still a 9. I still really like that game a whole bunch. Mombasa, they now have a new version, Sky Mines. This is from Alexander Pfister. Really cool game with all these tracks that you're moving up and whatnot. I would rate that a 9 and say give that. I'm trying not to talk about each game too much. But you can see my scores on here, and I'm pretty aligned with the top ones here. Battlestar Galactica, the board game. This one's really cool. This really put like heavy social deduction on the map was the idea. Gosh, what is the designer's name here? It's totally leaving my brain. Corey Konetska. Sorry, Corey. So Corey's designed a whole bunch of games for Fantasy Flight Games, and this one was really cool because it was like an IP at the time that people were like, wow, that's awesome that they got that, and whatnot. So, you could check that out. It's an 8. It probably drops to a 7.5 if I'm... Oh, which one did I click on? Kalis? It probably would drop to a 7.5. But again, I don't know that I'm going to go and update all these because I want to get through 100 of them. So I'm going to stop doing that, and I'll just talk through it if it's something I want to do. I will rate the ones that are unrated that I've played here, which these two I have. So we'll go from there. All right. Kalis is next. This is a phenomenal worker placement game. I guess this is one of the early worker placement games. So worker placement where you have a bunch of pawns or cubes or actual meeples in front of you, and you place them out on the board and you do the action on that space. Generally, the agreed upon term with worker placement is that you would block other players. So if you couldn't block other players, it's kind of action selection. But anyway, to each their own. And Kalis has a really cool mechanism with the bailiff and who's the other one? I can't remember, and it moves forward and it determines the number of rounds. And you can move these pieces forward to stop people from getting their worker placement spaces. So I had a lot of take that put in there with the worker placement. Excellent, excellent game. 9.5. I agree. This is one of the best games out there. And it still stands up today, so definitely check it out. And this is a newer version. There's also a newer version, which is like a remake. I think I have the one with the cover, and the guy is like the classic dour-looking, nobleman on the cover. So there's that. Beyond the Sun, this is a game I haven't rated yet from 2020. It is phenomenal. This game looks terrible. No offense to it, but it does not do a good job looking nice. The board, let me see if I can find some pictures. The board is pretty bland. They've actually got some pretty nice looking pictures up here and whatnot. But yeah, it's just a big old tech tree out on here. This actually makes it look pretty good the way they frame this. But yeah, this board extends out and it's just spaces for cards. And then a lot of the action happens on this sideboard here. Sorry, these are so slow to load, but I can keep talking. Where you put your ships out. Boy, they've done a good job taking these pictures because this game can look rough. You're placing these dice and they're not rolled. They're just sides that you can use, and you can move around here and you can colonize these planets to get upgrades and bonuses. It's just a phenomenal game with a limited number of turns and everything. Really, really fun. So I would rate this pretty highly. I'm going to say this is a 9 out of 10. You will see that I tend to have high scores. I know there are some people that will be like, nothing is a 10. A 10 will never exist. Yada, yada, yada. And that is fine. By all means, go for it. But I want to use 10s. So, 9s, 9.5s, 10s are some of my top games. They're great. They're games I generally like to play anytime, given the right group of people. That's always the tricky part of all that. All right, Beyond the Sun. Keyflower is a worker placement game that also has auctioning in it, and it has like these end game goals that you draft, which is really cool. So you kind of draft it. I want to score for this. I want to score for that, and you kind of see those things preceded. It's really good. I mean, these are the top 100 games, so it's weird unless I specifically dislike something. It's hard to say like, oh, it's bad or it's okay. Like, these are really good games that you could go. At the same time, I don't know that Keyflower is one that it's probably out of print that I would tell people to go chase down. Well, no, here you go. Amazon, $65. So I think that's fine. If this is something you sound interested. But do you need to go backwards with some of these games? I don't think so. I think if you got Beyond the Sun and that sounded interesting to you, you could skip over Keyflower and you you'd be fine. Like, it's a great game, but you'd be okay in terms of not having to go back to find that one. And whatnot. Look at Kalis. So here's would be one out of print. So find this at a library, find this with a friend, find this at a store library. I know it's in our store library. Give it a play. That's the way I would do that. Same with Battlestar Galactica, you know? Find somebody that has this, and I would say that's your best route. I wouldn't say these games are worth those prices necessarily. All right, Cthulhu Death May Die. This is the game that breaks my mold because I don't generally like Cthulhu games. This game is awesome. This game is phenomenal. You can actually see me. I did a live play. I'm going to give it a 9. I did a live play with Peter and Jerry and perhaps somebody else that I can't remember now, so I feel really bad. The One Stop Co-op Shop live stream channel, but we played this on Tabletop Simulator or whatever it was. And that was really fun. I don't think we have one on our channel. No, we do. Larry and I played this early on our channel, so you can go way back to the beginning of the channel in 2020. We did a playthrough of Cthulhu Death May Die. I don't know what it is about this game. This game just has a spark to it. I recently picked up Massive Darkness 2. And I enjoy that one. It's a dungeon crawl. It's also like a CMON game. But it doesn't have that spark that this game does. You are rolling dice and you're losing sanity. And as you lose sanity, you upgrade your powers. You get more willing to be crazy about things. And eventually you can go insane, and it's the same as dying. You're out of the game. But this game just does a phenomenal job. There's a really fun one with the Cthulhu Mini. Again, I wouldn't suggest doing that. It's got a lot of miniatures, so this price is high, but I think this is a pretty good price if it's something you're looking to play. I definitely suggest this one. This is one recently I suggested Derek Summer. I was like, look, it's totally outside what you think you would normally like, but it's really good. So I highly recommend Cthulhu Death May Die. All right, El Grande is number 88. So this is an older game. People love this game. This is an example where I really struggle with area control. This has a tower. Oh, it's just hard for me to remember this game. Definitely played this like 20 years ago. 1995, maybe even more than 20 years ago. But I played this game several times. But it's like you're placing your meeples out and you're trying to control areas by having the most. And it's that classic thing where on your turn, you're ahead by 1 in 4 different places and behind by 1 in 3 different places. And what areas do other people want based on scorecards and things that are going to score? And so then I'll be the person who will like try to shore up my places, and then nobody will go for them, and then I'll go over the top on my other ones, and yada, yada, yada. So not been one of my personal favorite games, but it is a beloved game in that genre. So there is that. But you can see I gave this a 6.5. Same with Architects of the West Kingdom. Of all these, I found Raiders to be much better, Paladins to be phenomenal. And so Architects just never did it for me. But this has a lot of interaction, like it's worker placement spaces, and then you can pull your opponent's workers into jail, I believe, and then they have to go bail them out and stuff. Again, a really liked game. Obviously, anything on here, I would be a little bit of the exception, but not one of my favorites anymore. Actually, not one that I enjoy very much. All right, Tainted Grail. This comes across the first game I have not played. I have not played Tainted Grail. I've seen a few people playing it. It's very story-driven. It's very campaign. There's just a lot of those. It's not something that I'm looking to get to, so I don't know. Dominant Species. Ooh, boy, this is a big, heavy game with like cones and cubes and control. Now, this has worker placement in it. This has cards. This has area control, but I love this game. This is area control, cutthroat worker placement. This brings together that Euro strategy with that cutthroat nature in a great way. Look, there's going to be a game where you roll over the top and a game where you roll over on your belly and cry. And you just got to be ready for that. It is a long game if people don't know it, so I highly suggest a group of people that generally do know it that you can jump into. It might be a little rough for you. But it's a really cool game, and sadly Chad Jensen passed away. It was either 2020 or 2021, the designer of this game. So they made a new one, Dominant Species Marine, that would be more readily available, although you can see this is here from GMT. All right, Seven Wonders classic drafting game. I actually suggest people try this game out. I actually think 6.5 is too low, and I said I wouldn't change it. I think this is a 7 for me. It's a fun game. This is one of the first games I played. One of the first games I played? With Brian, our store owner? No, I guess it was one of the first games I played, but he came to one of our houses when we were moving. Like, it was like to help us move, and we sat and played this game, so I have a good memory of it. Classic card drafting, things like that. It's a fun game. And there's lots of different versions of Seven Wonders. There's Seven Wonders Duel, and there's a new Architects version, which I'd actually suggest you start with that to kind of just get used to it. But this has a cool nature where you're picking and passing cards to the people next to you, and you get that feeling. And it plays very well at high player counts. 5, 6, and 7 work really well. All right, 83 is Lords of Waterdeep. 20 minutes, haven't gone through 20 games. This is a game that people use. I don't know, it's another one that's 6.5. That's a pretty good game. I'm going to change that one to a 7. I actually think better of some of these now. So, this is a worker placement in the Dungeons & Dragons universe. So it's a great way to get people to play games. It's very light. What this game does really well is there are buildings, like worker placement building spaces you can purchase, and now they are in play, and everybody can use them. So you get to build the board as a group, which is really cool. Voyages of Marco Polo. This is a cool game where it's another... it's dice worker placement. So you're rolling dice, and then you're assigning those dice to different spaces. What everybody loves about this game is everybody starts with an overpowered character who's like breaks the game, and everybody has a game-breaking power. So very simply, the one that everybody uses as an example when they describe this is normally you roll your dice, then you have to place them on the numbers they are, but one of the characters says you can place your dice on any number. So you don't have to roll them. You just put whatever numbers you want. And high numbers aren't better than low numbers. It's what you need, so that's what makes that character good and not so overpowered. But everybody has an overpowered character. You're then collecting resources and spending them. I kept that down towards a 7. But yeah, those overpowered characters, I wish they gave us Mo. I'm always sad when you get a character and it's like, oh, yours gets +1 gold on gold spaces and mine gets +1 wood on wood spaces. Okay, who cares? Not very interesting. Robinson Crusoe is kind of probably known for being one of the most brutal co-op games there is. I've had a lot of success, but I haven't played a lot of the harder ones. People really like this game solo. I gave it a 7. I actually think this is closer to a 6.5. One thing it does really well is it has these events that come up and you have to make a decision and then you set it aside, and then later on your decision, what you decided, will come back to haunt you. So it's really cool on that front. Teotihuacan, City of Gods. This is from Board and Dice. This one's from Portal Games. Z-Man. This is WizKids. I'll try to remember the ones as I go through. So Teotihuacan, City of Gods is an awesome... I think it's also dice worker placement. It's dice moving around the board. So I guess it's kind of action selection in a flow. You're building a temple in the center of the board. There's tons of variability in these games. It's a low price point, generally. To me, this is the best board and dice game. So if you're kind of looking at their T series of games, this is the best one. I really like Toletum from this year as well. But I still think of this one as great. There's an expansion that pretty much goes in seamlessly. There's a couple things I wouldn't suggest using it on a first play of your own or with other people, but a second play, it's no problem. Gives you more abilities and things. Phenomenal game. I gave it a 9. Agricola was kind of a classic. It was like known as like the game. People were in it. There were tournaments. This is an Uwe Rosenberg game, Z-Man Games. That's a revise from 2016. That game probably goes back to like 2007, I want to say. Big hit when it came out. Lots of people were playing. You would see this everywhere. There were fewer games, so if you went to a convention, there was more tables playing Agricola. And it plummeted for me to a 6.5 when I played it probably in 2019 last with my wife. And it was like, we're all trying to do our things. And I believe I remember it's like 14 rounds. And then somewhere in rounds 10, 11, it was like, nope, I got to just take everything you need and make you, plummet and, and just put all the pain on you, and you don't get what you're looking for, and it kind of becomes cutthroat, and I didn't enjoy that. Good morning, Eric. I'm going through the top 100 games on Board Game Geek. I said I would be an hour, and then in 20 minutes, I'm through 20 games. So we'll see how this goes. Although I guess 100, yeah, we'll see where we get to. So cool game. Fields of Arle. This is another Uwe Rosenberg. This is 2-player only. And I said I wouldn't adjust these, and I'm adjusting them. 7.5. This is a really solid game, actually. It's pretty fun. This is a great place to go if you're looking for kind of a heavy game, and you have 2 players, so you and a spouse, you and a partner, you and a friend that play together all the time, and you really like these kind of farming-style games. It really has some quite unique elements to it that make it different. It's very resource collection. It's very built for 2 players. So you have some cutthroat nature, but you have some comeback nature. So it's really well done there. All right, Sleeping Gods. So I've actually played Sleeping Gods twice. It's a big campaign, and I never finished the campaign. So it's a little weird to rate it for me, but I feel like since I played it and it's in the top 100, I do want to give it a rating. So this is a 7.5 for me. The story elements are really cool. The combat to me is neat but convoluted. You control 9 different characters. I played this with my wife and I played it solo. I probably played with my wife for about 3 hours. I probably played a campaign on my own for about 4. I never finished either one, which I would. I would like to go back and play it, but campaigns are just rough. I really like Ryan Laukatz's games, but there aren't any that draw me in a ton. Above and Below, Near and Far. Yeah, so Near and Far was probably my favorite of these games. But I know Sleeping Gods is really adored. It's really liked as a solo game. So again, if that's one of your things, this might be something you want to check out. So my 7.5 is kind of a weird rating because I never really got to the end. But that was 7 hours of playing. Like I feel like I want to show that I have played this game and have some kind of rating to it. 5 Tribes. This is a Bruno Catala game. This is Red Raven Games. 5 Tribes is Days of Wonder. They always have amazing productions. This game really brought like kind of these Mancala mechanisms where you kind of pick something up and drop a whole bunch of pieces and you're collecting things and all these resources and whatnot. I think it's a really solid 7 game. Like it's one of those ones you could pass if you haven't played it, but if you play it, you'll enjoy it, especially if you kind of like puzzly strategy. It can force a lot of AP, and sometimes it's like, just do this. This is what you need to do. And you kind of show other players. You start helping each other out because there's a lot of puzzle to it. So you could check that out from Days of Wonders. Anything else I wanted to say? Nope. That's Bruno Catala. Grand Austria Hotel. This is Z-Man Games. This is a solid game. I know there's somebody in Connecticut and she plays a lot, and this is like her favorite game. So I've played this with her, with other people, and it's got a lot of really neat elements to it. You're like feeding in customers and kind of like drafting them in a way, and then you have to feed them and then put them in their hotel rooms, and it's like a grid of hotel rooms, and you can fill in columns or rows, and you get to certain places and you're kind of like building your own scoring mechanisms. It is a dice drafting. Is it worker placement? You're just drafting dice. It does famously have the like snake draft. You go there and then the 4th player would come back. And so the first player actually has like 6 turns before they get back to their turn. So that time has sometimes felt like it brought people out of the game. So I feel like this game is really liked at 1 and 2 and generally sometimes 3, but 4 people will say there's a lot of downtime if you're first. Your mileage may vary, but yeah, that's a cool game if you can get to play it. I don't know how to rate all these games. I'm like, they're 8.5s. They're really, really good. They're really fun. Play them if you can, but it's okay. It's a 2015 game. There are games that are also really good now. Seventh Continent, I'm going to guess, is my least favorite game on the top 100. There might be one other here. So I helped doing the Dice Tower Awards, and there was a year I tried to play every single game, and Seventh Continent was up, and so I got it with my wife, and we meandered, and meandered, and meandered, and we took it down, and the next day we meandered, and meandered, and meandered, and took it down. I did, and finally my wife walked away. It must have been 6 hours later. We were not even close to the end of the campaign, and she walked away and said, I can't do it. I'm done. I can't play it anymore. And I tried to keep playing it out. I gave it back to the person I had borrowed it from, and I was like, I can't do it. And then I found out that like the first scenario they suggest is famously long and meandery, and the second and third ones are really good, and I've never gone back to play it. It was rough. So it's a 5. I mean, this is one of those ones that I could do a 1, 2, 3, or 4. I could go really low. But I never got that second play, so I give it the 5 with the benefit of the doubt. But there are people when this game came out that this was one of their favorite games. If you like exploration, adventure, not really story, but like story that reveals itself, like really in that explorative way, then this could be something that you'd really enjoy. Again, another one that I think people play solo, maybe 2-player, and really enjoy. I imagine solo is a big part of that. Clank, a deck building adventure. Hey, this just kind of brought deck building and boards together, that we didn't have to have deck building separate. Amazing, amazing game. Huge hit in 2016 at Gen Con when it came out. People were just like bowled over. Obviously, there's a ton of expansions. There's a legacy version, which I do suggest. That legacy one was very fun. It's a lot of story, a lot of wackiness. So if you kind of enjoy that, like, stickers in strange places and weird decisions you have to make and just kind of silliness, it's a good, fun romp. Clank, deck building adventure. Through the Ages. So I think this is like second edition and they're on third edition. And so how is this one a 7? I'm guessing it's higher up. This is going to slide off the list, so I'm just going to leave the 7. I don't know why. You'll see my next one is very, very high. I love third edition, so I don't know why. Maybe I was saying that I like the third edition more, and so I put this in there. I'm going to talk about it later. Race for the Galaxy. Oh, yeah, this is a great card game. This is simultaneous action selection. You're going to see that in Last Light. That's coming out from Gray Fox Games from Roy Canada, my friend, so check that game out as it releases in 2023. He did a great job using this Race for the Galaxy mechanism where everybody plays a card, and then you do all the actions everybody did, and the one you pick, you get a bonus, and it's like an engine builder where you're trying to build up to get victory points in various ways before the end of the game. Phenomenal. And yeah, pretty low price point, so no doubt. The only thing is my wife doesn't like space games. This tends to be a little bit of an exception, especially with Roll for the Galaxy, which may be higher. Aeon's End is a deck-building monster battle game. So you're deck building and you're fighting these monsters off. I like it. I like the standalone things better than like the legacy and campaign they've come out with. That generally tends to be how I am, with a few exceptions, like Marvel Champions or Gloomhaven or something like that I really like the campaigns of. But yeah, this is a very beloved game. They've got lots of different versions. This base game is a great place to start. They did do a second edition. I have the first edition, so then I can't get the second edition stuff and put it in. But I've just kind of had that base box. It's fun, but it's not really one of my favorite of this kind. I did give it an 8, probably a 7.5, so I will drop it down. But there are a lot of people, again, that like this a lot better than me, and it's a very another popular solo game, I believe. But yeah, again, in that same vein as Marvel Champions, but self-contained box, so people really like that. All right, so I played Kanban. I've never played Kanban EV, so I guess this wouldn't get a rating. Kanban for me would be a 7.5. It's definitely not my favorite. It's Vital Lacerda. Sorry, this is Rio Grande. Aeon's End is, I can't remember the company for Aeon's End. I know they're now owned Indie Boards and Cards, right? Action Phase, Indie Boards and Cards. Yep, so that's where you can find that under that, which might be like Indie Board Studios now or something. They bought out Stronghold Games, so there's that. Kanban is going to be originally from Stronghold, and now Kanban is with Eagle Griffin Games. Yeah, it's a really heavy style game about the Kanban system of like cars and working through the factory. The part that's tricky for me in Kanban is you have these like meetings in the boardroom at the end, and you have to have certain goals acquired at certain times, and that like it's just a tough thing for me, and you have to be like better than other people, and so that comparison, it was a little tricky. Pretty heavy game. This we played famously on a day, I think like Larry and I showed up at 5 a.m. at the store. We played all the way through, and then at 10 o'clock at night I taught this game. I have played it a few other times. I do enjoy it, but like I said, it's just not my favorite of the Vital Lacerda. I've never played the EV edition, so I will leave that box unchecked. But so it goes. This is Eclipse, and Eclipse Second Dawn is up above. It's a 7 for me. I really wanted to play this game a bunch, and for my birthday, my wife Kathy organized a whole bunch of people coming over, and the game took us 13 hours over 2 days, and it kind of really turned me off that game. You can really turtle a lot in here. But it is a space opera style game, 4X, lots of cool elements. There's a new edition that I haven't played, so you'll see that up above. So you'll see mostly the things I haven't played are new editions. Azul is an amazing game, tile laying game, drafting game, abstract. It really just brought out this beautifulness to abstract games. They did a great job. Azul is awesome. It's perfect for its weight, its size, its accessibility. All those kind of things make this a great game. So yeah, check it out. It's an 8. Netrunner, I rated a 6. I've tried to play this a bunch. I get when people like it. It is now a dead game, which isn't bad. You can keep playing it. There is like a company that's producing more stuff for this. Competitive LCG. It's cool because there's the 2 asymmetric powers. It wasn't something that I ever really dug into deeply, but again, there's people who really like it. It was from Fantasy Flight Games, and there, like I said, there's people who are still producing like non-official or unofficial cards for it, so you can find that. But that asymmetry was really cool. I actually played this back in the day in the first edition. That it's a Richard Garfield game that he had made, and I had my old cards. I don't know where they are now, but back right after Magic the Gathering. It came out in the 90s. Paladins of the West Kingdom is probably my favorite of all of these games. Raiders of the North Sea being the second. It's just a great, heavy Euro, like, upgrade your board. You're constantly moving things around, and when you remove them, you get bonuses. When you place them other places, you get more bonuses and decrease your cost of things. So it's got that, like, side feeling of upgrading. And then you're placing workers out on the board to try to get those spots first. And I love that, like, race to get things done before other people. Really cool game. Paladins of the West Kingdom. It's Garfield Games, Shem Phillips, and also Renegade Games. The Gallerist. Yeah, this is another Vital Lacerda game that I really didn't enjoy that much. It's kind of, excuse me, jokingly touted as a really, like, simple game because it's worker placement. You just place a worker and do the action in that spot. But there's a lot of heavy things that go on. There's, like, a whole flow. I do actually love the theme of this game, that you're, like, running art galleries and trying to get people to show up. And it's, like, big name, like, VIP people. And then there's just people who are coming in. There's this whole thing on the side where you're trying to, like, gain control of things you're going to score at the end of the game. And I tend to, like, kind of enjoy that. But when somebody can take away the thing that you're going to score for, and they can almost be like, well, this will give me 10 points, but this will give me 5 and make you not get, 10 points. So that's a 15-point swing. And those feelings are a little tough for me, so. There is that, The Gallerist. Mechs vs. Minions. This made a huge splash. This is from Rockstar? No. They're the ones that make Grand Theft Auto. The company that makes League of Legends, and my best friend works there. Riot Games, so I should know. He no longer works there, but I had a friend who works there who ironically, like, does not play video games and board games and things. But this was like a giant box. They were playing board games, like, at lunch and stuff, and they decided they wanted to make a game. They put this thing out for $75. It is like a $200 game. You've got all these miniatures, all these parts. It's such an amazing looking game. So cool. It came with pre-painted miniatures for your heroes, and then it's like a programming game where you can play a one, or you can play through a series of campaigns. But yeah, you've got these miniatures that you play as. Really, really awesome. And what was really cool is that my friend got me a copy, like, for review. So he got it sent over to me from the company. So I got a chance to play this, and I still have this. And this is, like, this will be one of those games that, like, means something to me. It's got nostalgia behind it because of my friend working for the company and getting the game, which was really neat. So that's Mechs vs. Minions. It's definitely a great game to, like, play with kids. The programming can be a little tricky, but I think there's ways to, like, slow it down and whatnot. You can see this price point's a lot higher now. It was like $75 when it came out. But yeah, if you kind of got family or people that are into League of Legends, it's a great way to go. Quacks of Quedlinburg. I think of this game fondly because my daughter loves it. It is a build bag, push your luck game. You put tokens in a bag and then you pull them out and you're brewing potions. Again, pretty family accessible, like little kids. It would be tricky with, but older kids and can kind of build some of those things. A lot of people complain about the push your luck, but I think they do a good job mitigating it. And I rarely just, I just drew the wrong thing and I'm done. There's a lot of things you can set yourself up so you don't do that. And you have to kind of know what are you pushing, because often you don't need to push very high to get bonuses. But it can have a little bit of a runaway leader issue, and that could be one of the complaints. And they've got lots of things. I know we've got a big box for it now, and there's all these expansions. Honestly, my daughter usually doesn't even want to change everything up, so that base box is where she's happy. And you can see a playthrough with my daughter Zephyra on our channel of Quacks of Quedlinburg. 8.5. That is North Star. Kingdom Death Monster. I have played very little bit. It's a campaign game. My 7.5 rating probably isn't necessarily fair. It's just not a game I'm going to get into. There's 1,000 miniatures. And you have to glue them all together. But it's basically a boss battling, and then you do like a settlement phase, then a boss battle and a settlement phase. The boss battles were cool. I did like 2 of those. We were very weak, so it was kind of weird. And then the settlement phase, there's like all these boxes you could check, so I really didn't get a ton into it. Basically, if you're into this, you're going to be into it. They're doing, I know it's Adam Poots, but I can't remember the company. Hey, Rich, thanks for joining us. Here, we're just going through the top 100 games on BGG. So, I guess I'm trying to say all the companies, so we'll go through it here. But you're going to know, like, if you look at the minis and you want to build the minis and paint the minis and you're into boss battles and you want a campaign, and again, I think it's very solo-friendly. Publisher's Kingdom Death. Yeah, Adam Poots is the designer. So, you'll know if you want to be into this game or not. So me giving it a rating, you can see it's 8.5 by people on here. Very, very popular game for a lot of people. Come on. There. Le Havre, another Uwe Rosenberg game from Z-Man Games. There are a lot of these they brought over. And Z-Man is now owned by Asmodee, I think. Or is Z-Man... I don't know where they are now. Is Z-Man under Plan B? No. Asmodee. I don't remember. So, anyway. I'll just say Z-Man. That's where the publisher was. This is a cool game where you're, like, gathering goods and moving things around and whatnot. And there's all these buildings, and they sort out in a different order, and you're trying to get the buildings and figure out all your resources and how you can turn them in and ship them. And there's, like, fish, and you can cook the fish so that there's more you can eat because you have to feed your workers. It's not super punishing on the worker end. So that, yeah, that's that. It's a really cool game. I'm running out of things to say on those style games. It's like resource generation, resource management. But it's like overload. You're gathering tons and tons of things and trying to figure out how to turn them into points, and like everything turns into points and coins at the end of the game. Kind of neat. Star Wars Imperial Assault, this would drop pretty dramatically for me. I wanted this to be a game that my family would play, my wife would play with me, and we just never got there. But it is a pretty cool game. I love Star Wars so much, but it was hard to get to the table. It's basically Star Wars Descent. They made an app. I never explored all that. This is almost like my sad rating of, I thought this would just like be the game that we would play. It'd be like a lifestyle game, but it turns out that was Gloomhaven for us. Fantasy Flight Games. Lisboa. This is my favorite Vital Lacerda game. This is from Eagle Griffin. This is an amazing game about rebuilding the city of Lisboa. There's earthquakes, there's floods, there's fires. You've got to help with all of them. There's card play, there's workers, there's resource management, there's tracks. I think so fondly on this game. 9.5, phenomenal. Get out there and play it. It is a high price point. Find somebody who can play it, a library, whatever. Amazing, amazing. That's my favorite Vital Lacerda game. Provost. Thank you, Brad. The Provost and Kalis. The Bailiff and the Provost. Thank you. Appreciate it. All right, Great Western Trail 2nd Edition. Great Western Trail is going to be up higher. This is one of the best games. This is another one I'm a little sad. For whatever reason, my wife doesn't like the theme of this. They got the Argentina one. That's out now. I don't know about 2nd Edition versus 1st Edition. I've never played 2nd Edition, so again, I've got to leave this here. They're the same game, so I don't feel bad having my rating. I'm not going to put a rating in here. Someday I'll get the 2nd Edition. I'll throw the rating, or if it moves higher than the 1st Edition, because they're basically the same, I'll put my rating in, but I guess I'll leave it out for now. Pandemic Legacy Season 0. I don't know. I haven't played it. Season 1 was phenomenal. Season 2 was not as good as Season 1, but it was very good, and I haven't played Season 0. From Z-Man Games. That's Asmodee. That is Asmodee, so Z-Man Games. Ooh, Clans of Caledonia. This really was said to be like another version of Terra Mystica, which is one of my favorite games. And it's real good. It's totally different. It's the funniest game. You're teaching it, and it's like, just like Terra Mystica, just like Terra Mystica, just like Terra Mystica. And then you play the game, and it really doesn't feel like Terra Mystica at all. So it's really funny on that front that it feels like it's going to be Terra Mystica, and then it just is not. So it's funny, but yeah, it's a cool game. It's got market kind of things. I think there was an announcement, either a digital edition or a 2nd edition that's coming out soon. I can't remember which it is. I actually highly recommend this. I think this is an 8. I don't think this is a 7.5. My only initial complaint was that, like, oh, people said it's Terra Mystica. I know it's not really fair to do to a game, but there's that. Okay, Crocodile. How cool is this? This game made it into the top 100. This is a dexterity game from Canada. You're trying to flick these discs and get them into the center ring. I always played caroms as a kid growing up. Was kind of our game of choice. Oh, it's almost like tabletop pool. And this has that similar feel. You're trying to get into that ring in that center hole, and then you score points in all sorts of ways for being the closest, and you can knock your opponent out. It's phenomenal. I brought this to a beach house one time, and it was just so popular with my family. So it's cool, but the boards are going to be expensive, so your mileage may vary on that. Power Grid. Yeah, this one never really caught me. It's an auction game with resource. You have to get them. It's Friedman Freese, so it's going to be his 4F studio. I don't remember who the publisher is. It's probably Z-Man. I don't know who publishes it now, but a lot of people like this game. A lot of people cut their teeth on like heavier games with this one. So it's something you could go back. You can see it's still in print and not super expensive. So I would suggest you get a play of it. It's got like a whole market for buying energy, and then you auction off power plants to try to get things. Cascadia, I have played, and Cascadia is excellent. Cascadia is an 8. Is it an 8.5? I don't think so. I don't think it's one of my favorites there. But it's a tile drafting, tile laying game. It's incredibly smart in that you have these open territories. You always have 3 open. You place a 4th, and then you put one of your tiles, so you always have choice. You're not stuck. So you always feel it's like positive drafting. You're always drafting things. It's a recent game. I think it won a lot of awards in 2021, and I feel bad that I can't remember specifically for Dice Tower Awards what it won. But highly suggest it. It's a great gateway game or welcoming game, however you want to say that. It does a really good job. Cascadia, that is AEG and Flat Out Games. Zulkin the Mind Calendar. So this was one of my least favorite of the T games, but people love it. It's that whole like plan ahead. And I feel like I like planning ahead. I like the idea mathematically, analytically speaking. But in games, for some reason, it just doesn't always work well for me. I think I'm teaching a lot and I'm focused. It's not those kind of game where like I am playing with 4 people who know this and now we're really focused on that and I'm doing that. So it can be a little frustrating. But this game has tracks that are actually gears that spin around, and it's really cool. I've got to go faster. I'm talking so slow. So this is Board and Dice now, I think, because it's one of the T games. The Crew, The Quest for Planet 9 is an absolutely amazing co-op game. It's a co-op trick-taking game. The story I have for this is we grabbed the game. It's not 2019. It's totally 2020. I don't know why 2019 is on there. And it won, I think it won Game of the Year for Dice Tower in 2020 as well. And it's, anyway, so we were in the pandemic and Brian and his wife Rachel were living with us. And so Brian, Kathy, my wife, and Rachel and I sat down every night and we did 99 plays and we beat all 50 missions during that March, April, May of the pandemic. It was phenomenal. It was such a great thing to do every night. Loved it. On Mars, another Vital Lacerda game that I didn't enjoy very much. It has a lot of weird movement. People love this game. So, again, check these ones out. Find the Vital Lacerda that might be right for you. Very heavy game. You have to decide. That is Eagle Griffin. You are colonizing and building up Mars is the idea. Maracaibo, I thoroughly enjoy. Alexander Pfister, as was Mombasa. This is now Capstone Games that publishes Maracaibo. You're sailing around. It's got a rondel. It has some similarities to Great Western Trail, which is kind of like the other great Pfister game to me. And you're playing a huge tableau of cards, all this planning, and you're kind of moving around, taking spaces from other players, kind of, and you can explore. There's just so much to dig into this game. There's a co-op version that you can now play. The expansion just made the boards even better in that there's all these asymmetrical things you can start with at the beginning of the game. Yeah, Rich says, On Mars looks great, but it scares me because it's so big. Yeah, I had that issue. It's one of those ones I never got a chance to play with like my main people that I learn with who are really good about me. I get, 90% of the rules down, and then they help me to see more of the flow of the game, the strategy. I didn't necessarily get there. So I would go back and play On Mars again, but it didn't do much for me. Maracaibo is one of my favorite games of all time. 9.5. Mansions of Madness. It's a cool game. The app integration was neat, but again, the Cthulhu thing just doesn't bring me in. Honestly, I don't even think this thing is a 6.5. I think it's lower than that for me. But I've had fun with my plays. Groups that really enjoy it, be there. That's Fantasy Flight Games. There's just other app-driven games I'd rather play. Pandemic Legacy Season 2. I guess I didn't rate it as high. I remembered it being pretty fun, but I gave it a 6.5. I don't know if it was because I couldn't finish. I was trying to play through my daughter. But it's a legacy game. We'll talk about that when we get to Season 1. Anachrony is coming in at 45, and this is a worker placement game where they put miniatures in that you can work with. Brad says On Mars broke his brain. Nice. Anachrony is Mind Clash. That's right. I was trying to remember the name. And they just made a huge box of this. This is a very popular worker placement game. This is one that I want to play with a group that loves it. I've never played it with a group that really loves this game. Wow, it's a 4 out of 5 on the heaviness scale. This game is great. They pulled the ultimate trick. They put a mechanism in here that people like. It's so thematic, and it's just alone. So you're traveling through time. So your future self can send things to your past self to help them. So you can send a resource, which then you have to make sure you pay off in the future. So you can get something in the past and pay it in the future, which is the exact definition of a loan with no interest. But they totally convince you of the time traveling thing by doing that. So they've done a great job there. Underwater Cities is from Vladimir Suhi. I've got Woodcraft downstairs. I was just learning it this morning. His games are phenomenal. Underwater Cities is so good. It was compared to Terraforming Mars, but they're so non-similar. They just have a lot of card play. This is a worker placement game, which Terraforming Mars doesn't have at all. But it feels like people kind of vie back and forth for these two. I like Underwater Cities better than Terraforming Mars. It's amazing. It's a 9.5. It's from Rio Grande and Delicious Games. All of a sudden, I feel like I have a cold. Agricola, I did the revised edition. I did the other one. There you go. So we talked about that. Pax Pamir 2nd edition. Yeah, I've only gotten a few plays of this. And it's solid. I don't really know what I have a lot to say about this. It's a weird game. It's Cole Worley, and it's going to be like Worley Games, I think now, is what the 2nd edition. He's kind of taking his games from where they were published before. It's very highly interactive. No, it's not very obtuse. It's obtuse, but once you get it, you'll get it. And it's a lot of that interaction. It's a very different style game from everything we're seeing on here, for the most part. It's very historically based, kind of. And then things are kind of bent. You'd have to know Cole's games. Cole is most famous for Root. So you kind of see that style of game, right? There isn't really the asymmetry in this. There's card play and there's like tokens moving around. I don't think I can describe it well right now, but I gave it an 8. It's a solid game. I don't remember what I rated the crew. I feel like I rated the crew very high, so the deep sea mission is really arguably even better. I think it was a 9.5, so I'm going to give this one a 9.5. For sake of keep moving, I'm going to go back. Blood Rage was like the ultimate, Kickstarter, and everybody was so excited from Eric Lang and Simon. I give it a 7. It has a huge runaway leader problem, especially in that third phase. But the minis are cool. I like drafting like what monsters you want on your side. The idea that you're trying to like go to Valhalla so you get things for losing is really cool. There's definitely a lot in here. I don't even mind the interactions in this game, the drafting, but yeah, there's just always like, it was a game where somebody scored 243 points and I think I scored 27, and it was just not fun at all. Like, it was not fun to just never score points and watch somebody score 200 and something points. Like, sorry. Caverna, the Cave Farmers. This is Agricola that I like better, I think, although I rated them both a 7, so maybe I'm wrong. But yeah, you are dwarves in a cave instead of people on a farm, and you're, worker placement and gathering all your resources. And supposedly it plays 7. I don't know anybody who's ever played it at 7. I actually think it would work better than people say, but you got to be ready to go with your actions. But big, heavy resource management, farming style game. Kind of neat. Too Many Bones is a game that I need to go back and play. People are coming in the store constantly asking us if we have Too Many Bones things, and we don't. From Chip Theory Games. But yeah, this is really cool. It plays well solo. It's like a dice asymmetric powers game. Chip Theory has Liz Davidson from Solo. Oh no. I'm sorry, Liz, that I can't remember the name of your channel. Liz, I'm so sorry. Anyway, from her channel, and she's doing like overviews of all the characters. I need to go back and play this. I need to contact Chip Theory and see if this is one that they could send me that I could play on the channel, because that'd be really cool. So I need to go back. My real first experience was like teaching 4 people and trying to figure out all 4 characters, and it was a little bit of a mess. So I didn't have a great, first. I don't know. My first play, Jason Perez taught me. That was my second play. I guess it was the first one I was teaching other people. But yeah, I'd really like to go back and play it. Be neat. Puerto Rico. Speaking of Jason Perez, he made a new version. He helped design thematically a new version, 1897, which is coming out. So you will see that on the channel. This was the #1 game on Board Game Geek for a long time. And again, is another really cool game that gave us that same thing that's in Race for the Galaxy, where one person picks an action and then everybody copies that action and gets to do it, and they get a bonus for that. Marvel Champions, the card game. I haven't played that in a while. No, I'm joking. So this is Fantasy Flight game. Oh, this is Ravensburger. So look for that new edition in 2023. I think it's going to be really exciting. Jason had it with him at PAX Unplugged, and at some point he's going to come over and we're going to play it on the channel because he lives right near me. Sorry, I've got something going on. Give me 1 second. All right. Marvel Champions from Fantasy Flight Games. This is probably the greatest game of all time. It's a 10. It's so good. If you're in it, you're in it. If you're not, you're not. Like, if you hate Marvel, you're not going to like it. If you don't like deck building, building decks for games, you may not like it, although the pre-built decks do a great job. It's co-op. It's phenomenal. The asymmetry, the variety, the replayability is through the roof. It's the greatest I've ever seen. I'm at 4.40. I'm over 4,000 plays of the game, not 4,500. I'm over 4,000 plays of it. It is phenomenal. Problem with too many bones is 3 gearlocks is the best challenge, or 2 and 1 has a summon. Got it. Marvel Champions is a 10 out of 11. It's an 11 out of 10 is what it is. So good. Food Chain Magnate, very heavy game. What is the name of this studio in Germany? I can't believe I can't remember the name of them anymore. They classically say if you can't lose the game on Splatter, if you can't lose the game on turn 1, what's the point of turn 1? So, yeah, it's super cutthroat. You are trying to get the customers to come to your restaurants to buy your hamburgers, your sodas, your fries, your milkshakes. It's pretty cool. I would not suggest it. And it's for first-time gamers or whatever, or like your first play is going to be crazy. It's super cutthroat, and it's very expensive. But, yeah, people like that one a lot. Barrage, yeah, it's okay. I don't even know if this is a 7 for me, but there are people that like this one a whole bunch. This is the company that they made, Tashini and all them. I can't remember the name of it now. But Barrage has this cool like waterfall effect. Like literally you're getting hydroelectric energy. Cranio Creations, that's their company. Simone Luciani, Danielle Tashini, and some of them that make a lot of these games. They make some of the T games as well. And yeah, so you get like literally trickle down effects from like if the energy goes through here and the water comes through here, then you get these bonuses as you go down the stream. So it's got that cool interaction in a heavy Euro game. Oh, yeah, we still got 33 of these. Mage Knight. Yeah, this is a 10. This might be my favorite solo game. I know that'll shock people. I don't think it actually is with Marvel Champions in there, but it was forever. There's a big, heavy game that I think is absolutely worth digging into. There's also a Star Trek version if you prefer that. Some point I would like to play this on the channel, but I need a lot of hours. It's like 6 hours for a game at times, but it's really cool. It's a fantasy adventure style game. You're coming across all these things. Really incredible card play. It is from WizKids and the designer of Through the Ages, Lotta Shavato, who also made Codenames. 11 out of 10. There you go, Rich. Everdell. This is, what is the name of the studio now? They changed their name. I can't even remember the name of it. Everdell is very beloved. It's a cool game. It's really fun. It's really neat how you can progress along through seasons. So you're like anthropomorphic animals, and you are trying to gather all the, it's worker placement. You're trying to gather all the nuts and twigs and things and go from there. It's got a lot of expansions for it. There was like a big box that released this year people were really excited about. And you can move on to the next season. You play like the 4 seasons or maybe 3 of the 4. And when your workers are out, you move on to the next season. Other people are there, but it doesn't overstay its welcome, and you really build a lot with your engine, which is what people really like. Viticulture is a game from Stonemaier Games, from Jamie Stegmaier, the designer. One of their early games. It's about making wine, and it's really, really good. The issue it has is you can have a runaway leader, and the cards are really strong. So everybody I know plays the house rule. When you get a card, draw 2, keep 1, discard the other, and that will really overcome the randomness of the card play. Orleans is good, but I like the alpaca one better that I can't remember the name of. This is DLP and Renegade. It's a bag building game. You're traveling around, you're gathering resources. The bag building is really neat because then you're upgrading your bag and you need like sets of characters in order to trigger actions. But yeah, there's an alpaca one that came out that I enjoyed more, and I can't remember the name of it, from Renegade. Lost Ruins of Arnak is a darling from 2020. along with Dune Imperium that I imagine we'll see higher on the list. And it's a worker placement game with cards. Really good. I've actually played this one with Isaac Childress, the designer of Gloomhaven and Frosthaven, and he was very good at it. And ended up winning that game. But that was really fun, and the expansion makes the game even better. A first play, I'd probably leave it out. I've taught people with the expansion, and I think it's fine, but it might be best to not go with it if it's like your first play and you're the teacher. But really neat. Highly recommend. Root is Cole Worley's game, and this is Leader Games, and like Vast was this game that came out that everybody thought was amazing, and then Root just really surpassed it and put them on the map for sure. It is an evergreen title. We cannot keep this game in stock at the store. Forever and ever we didn't have copies, and funny enough, I went in the back room the other day and I saw that we had finally, like Wingspan and Root, we had so many copies of because we finally got more and we just had to keep them on hand. You know, we've got like 20 copies of each because those games sell so fast. Root was really cool because the year we got it, Gary Pope was with us, and he had a copy of this, and I read the rules in the car, and then it was like at Gen Con, and I just taught it 3 times in a row one morning, and people were so excited to get it taught to them because there's a lot to it. Asymmetric powers, and like a light war game. Really neat. Arkham Horror, the card game, just doesn't compare to Marvel for me. It's more of a story game and less of like how you build your deck and less of a numbers game. It's more of like what happens to you. But, you know, that's the seesaw. Like, are you more story or are you more mechanics? And that's kind of where it goes. So Marvel Champions is better to me. Fantasy Flight Games. Wingspan. See, now it's weird. Now I'm talking fast through the top games when I should have talked fast through the lower games. Wingspan is an amazing card game. And this is also from Stonemaier Games, who just did a great job with the production. And the designer, she's made a whole bunch of, Elizabeth Hargrave, she's made a whole bunch of popular games now as well. But she really did a good job. She's really into nature, and so she really brought out that bird theme here. All the bird cards are unique. They all have unique powers. It's a great game. If you haven't played it, go play it. Eclipse, Second Dawn for the Galaxy. I talked about Eclipse in my 13-hour game. I've never played the second edition, so I can't rate that. And yeah, it stinks because it's weird when you play the first edition, and the second edition is like really just upgrade of components, so you can't rate it. And then it's like, well, I haven't played the number 25 game. Why? Get out there and play it. Like, but I played something similar. I guess I ranked Legacy a little lower than regular Clank, so I didn't seem to enjoy it as much. It's interesting that the Legacy is above the regular version, but I guess it might be true for Pandemic as well. I guess I would rather play Clank than this one, but it was neat, the story elements and whatnot. Terra Mystica was my favorite game of all time till Gaia Project came out, which we're going to see higher on the list. This is the fantasy version of Gaia Project. They're now making a heavier version of Terra Mystica, and they made a lighter one called Terra Nova. Capstone Game publishes this now. This is one of the greatest games of all time. It suffers a little at 2 players, so I highly recommend it at 3 and 4. Or play Terra Nova, which has those rules, or play Gaia Project, which works great at 2. Or go search for some BGG 2-player rules. You can put a couple bots and things in and a couple buildings, and it'll work out. But, you know, it's generally your pick. I like the technology tracks in Gaia Project better than the cult tracks in Terra Mystica, but they are both amazing, amazing games that I would rate a 10. Feast for Odin, man, this game goes up. This game's real good. Kathy and I played this recently, and we played with the expansion, and this is an 8.5. This is one of Uwe Rosenberg's best. It's a worker placement, tile-laying game. There's like 60 action spaces or something that you can worker place. Tiles over the board, so many options. Every game is different. So many things you can do. Awesome, awesome worker placement game. Asmodee, Z-Man Games. Concordia. Oh my gosh. I wonder if I should make a different bit. No, I'm just going to go till 12:30 and I'm just going to spew about these games and how good they are. Because now we are getting into some of the best games of all time. Or, yeah, we already have gone through some of them, but whew. Okay, so Concordia is just amazing. This is a game where you don't know your score until the end of the game, and it's so good, and it works so well. The hand management in this is you play a card, and then you play another card, and you're doing the actions, and they're on the table in front of you, and then you play a card, the Tribune, that says you gain money for the more cards you played, and then you scoop them all back up. And so that's that system. You're taking actions. This is like the smooth of all smooth Euro games. Like the turns are just real simple, real thinky, but you're just taking action, and then somebody triggers the end of the game, and you're buying cards, and you're putting buildings out, and you're sailing around the board. It's very mechanical in its structure, but it's just it's just amazing. I need to stream the 2-player version of this that they just made, or maybe solo, whichever I decide to do. They made an awesome bot who, instead of doing what you're doing, does the opposite of what you're doing. And it's like, why don't more games do this? It's such a cool feeling that they're not copying what you're doing. Instead, they're kind of doing the opposite of what you're doing. So neat. So yeah, now this plays great. 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5 players. This is one of the greatest games of all time. Which is funny. I probably just said more good about this than Terra Mystica. And it's a 9.5. But whatever. 9.5, 10. They're amazing. Go get Concordia. Play it. It's so good. Your first game might be 2 hours, but it really, really should come down from there. Unless you're playing 4 and 5 players, then it'll probably stick around 2 hours. But gosh, you can play this in 1 hour and 15 minutes with 2 people, and it's amazing. All right. Brass, Lancashire. Either Brass, Birmingham's higher, and I think it's higher for me, but this is a 9.5. This is Martin Wallace. Concordia's Rio Grande Games, and the designer's Matt Gertz. I'm pretty sure I'm right. So Brass, Lancashire is Martin Wallace. Yep, Matt Gertz. The 2 Brass games are Martin Wallace, I keep saying that, and now published by Roxley, who does like Dice Throne and all those games, so they've got quite a wide variety, as well as Radlands. This game is so neat in that, like, you're playing 2 eras. You're playing the canal era, and then you're playing the rail era in England, and you're trying to, like, maximize your income, and then you're trying to maximize your points. And so as you make tiles, they can give you income for, like, shipping goods, like cotton. What are you shipping? Cotton and pottery and trade goods. I can't remember the other things that are on there. Something else significant. But you're also trying to get, like, coal and iron produced so other people use your stuff, and then you get points. And the tiles can, like, stay on the board and score during each, or they can give you, like, a big bonus immediately. It's a pretty heavy game. It's surprisingly interactive, even though it's kind of not. Like, you're gonna take things from other people in a good way. So it's got a lot of that surprise interaction. Both versions are good. I prefer the Birmingham one, but there's a lot of people like whichever. They're both good. Check them out. And yeah, this is going to be like a heavier style game. There's something else I wanted to say about these. Oh, so what Martin Wallace does so well is you're trying to get money, and you're like, you're cash poor for a while. Then you start to have a lot of money, and at the end of the game, money does nothing except it's a tiebreaker. So it's just such a great balance of, like, that classic, like, I need to earn income, and now I need to switch and earn points and not worry about my income. And if you over income, you won't get enough points. And if you under income, you won't be able to use your income to generate, like, whoo, it's so good. Like, I love how Martin Wallace does that in so many of his games where money is worth nothing at the end of the game. It's just the means to get to the points. Seven Wonders Duel is the 2-player version of Seven Wonders. It's really good. It's an 8, but I wouldn't gush about the others. But if you're looking for 2-player games, it's one of the best head-to-head 2-player games, especially for its length. This is going to be 30 minutes, right? This is going to be in the Azul category, card drafting. Nemesis is the other game on the top that I just don't enjoy. I've played it several times. I played solo. I played with a big group. I don't get it. I do like the Aliens movies, even though horror is not my favorite. I can't figure this game out. I haven't played it with a group that's figured it out. In the big game I played with people, I died on turn 2. It was like an alien jumped out and stabbed me, and then it was like a critical draw, and then it was like, you're dead. I was like, okay. And that was after, like, 45 minutes of setup and rules teach, and I died within 20 minutes, maybe 30 minutes of starting the game. That was not fun. So we immediately restarted, and we just meandered. I couldn't get there with Nemesis. I'm sorry. I know there's people who love it. I think sometimes games are just way more thematic, and the mechanics just don't work for me. Let's move on. Seven Wonders is Asmodee. Brass is Roxley. Nemesis is... I don't know the name of this company. Oh, is it the one that make Tainted Grail and all those? I think so. Awaken Realms. It is, yes. So that's Awaken Realms. People love this game a ton. If you're like, oh my gosh, aliens stab other people, random things happening, that sounds amazing. Play it. It's very, very loved. You can see it's in the top 20 games of all time. Castle Burgundy is a 10. This is Stefan Feld's absolute masterpiece, hands down. It is amazing. You roll dice, then you're using your dice to draft tiles to build up your thing. It doesn't look very good. The art is notoriously picked on, but the gameplay is awesome. It works so well. It works amazingly well at 2 players, which is really cool. It works great at 3 and 4. It can be long for people who haven't played it, but for people who have played it, it's like boom, 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 boom. You're just rolling through the game. It's got tons of mitigation, so those dice don't hurt you, which is a really cool part of it. It's got upgrade abilities. I don't know. It's one of the best games ever. I rated it a 10. Do I like it more than Concordia? I guess so. I gave it a 10, and that one a 9.5. So yes. Yeah, this game's real good, and there's a new edition. In fact, Awaken Realms is publishing a new edition that's going to be nice and come out. Scythe, here's another one of the ones. I do enjoy Scythe. I love Scythe. The upgrading mechanisms. This is Jamie Stonemeyer Games. This is like the most hyped Kickstarter, and it lived up to the hype. I struggle so much with the end game of Scythe, but I will say all the good things about Scythe. The combat is awesome. The resource management is great. The upgrading, where you can remove a cube to make something give you more things and then place a cube to make it cheaper, is amazing. Like, more people need to copy that. It's so good. The problem I have with Scythe, which again, it's still a 7, is it is a giant efficiency puzzle that I absolutely adore, with some combat thrown in that makes perfect sense. Like, hey, I got to beat you so I can get to endgame conditions to score these points to play this card. Go for it. Beat me. I don't care. It's fine. Now I got to beat up on you. It's awesome. Plays great with high player counts. But it goes from efficiency puzzle to like completely not that. Not only do you have to kind of predict when the end will be, but you have to completely change gears, be totally inefficient at the end of the game in order to score victory points. And I've got a lot of plays aside, 10, 12 games. We did like a podcast episode where we talked through a game, and that same kind of thing happened. Twilight Struggle definitely used to be one of my favorite games. It's a big, heavy 2-player game. It's probably split a little for me. There's a game higher up on the list that I like better 2-player now that has come out. But this is a really cool game from Jason Matthews and GMT. It's card play. It's track management. This game, I don't know how it does it, but you absolutely feel that sense of the Cold War. It's a Cold War related game, and you get that like, oh no, but what if a war starts over here and I have to deal with this and we have that and we have that? Oh my gosh, and we got to go to space, and the Russians are beating us here, and oh no, the Americans have stopped us here, and we're starting this, and no, you're going to score that, and you're getting too many points, and your communism is too popular and democracy is overrunning things. Like, and you really you totally get that feeling, and I have no idea because it's all just mechanics and card play, and it absolutely does that so well. It's the reason it has to be a 2-player game. If you dig into this game, you'll love it, but typically the complaints is it's a 4 and 5 hour 2-player game. And people are out on card play, but it's really, really good. I don't actually know why that's an 8. That is absolutely a 9 for me, but I haven't played it in forever. So that's going to be one of the issues, is it's hard to get to the table. Great Western Trail is another phenomenal Alexander Pfister game, 8.5. Rondell, you are trying to herd cattle and bring them west, I think to Kansas City, and then they get sent out the other way, if I remember correctly. It's like engine, hand management, deck building, Rondell, upgrading, which is really engine, I guess. It's not a lot of resource management in there, but it's a really cool game. People play this game over and over. It's got lots of replayability with the things that come out. And now, of course, they've got the 2nd edition, which is the same thing with a new coat of paint. And they've got the Argentina edition, which I haven't played. Dune Imperium, again, it was always like Lost Ruins of Arnak, Dune Imperium. The conflict isn't very interesting to me in Dune Imperium. So again, it's a 7.5. I enjoy it. I like it. I want to do all those things, but it doesn't call to me the way it does other people. I don't even mind the conflict. It's not an issue. Sometimes you can just avoid the conflict completely, and it doesn't matter. Like, okay, you earn the point and commit all your resources, and then I'll just commit my resources next turn when it's worth 2 points. So there's just a lot of those random elements and those cards that come up. But the worker placement stuff is all great. It's a fun game. And if you can get the deck building going and get an engine like outside of that, it's really neat. Again, there's people who like this a lot more, and I haven't played with any expansions. Through the Ages. Okay, so there was 3rd edition, or 2nd edition. This is 3rd edition. This is one of the greatest games of all time. Here's the one exception. It's the only game I play on an app. The app is amazing. Highly, highly suggest, if this sounds interesting to you, it is a card-driven, like this river draft system civilization game. You're not going to get that feel of like moving around a board and like you do attack other players, but you don't get that like, you know, there's that physical nature of moving around like Sid Meier's Civilization. It's not that. It's a card drafting. This is the ultimate pivot game. This game requires you to pivot. You are picking a track, and at some point you can no longer go down that track, and you must pivot and go a different track. You can do an overall strategy throughout the game. That will work, but it requires you to pivot and pivot on the spot. So it is the ultimate blending of tactics and strategy, I think. If it sounds interesting to you, get the app. It's on your phone. The tutorial is amazing. They will walk you through the game. It's the greatest board game app I've ever played. Easily. I don't play a lot of them, admittedly, but it's so good. It's so engaging. My wife and I will take our phones. We'll play this on the train down to New York City. Boom. There's a game. It was phenomenal, and we can play it that quickly. Awesome. Played a game. Kathy, Eric Summer, and I played a game on the app, probably in 2020, maybe early 2021. 3-player game, and we finished like 256 to 246 to 230. Like, we were so close. It was awesome. So, absolutely phenomenal game. One of the greatest games of all time. Get the app. It's probably $10. It's going to be my guess. You can wait for it to go on sale if you're not sure. It's so good. It's a heavier game. It's longer. In person, the game runs 3 and 4 hours. On the app, though, you could get a game done in like an hour with 2 people. So it's awesome. We'll sit on the couch and play sometimes. Gaia Project is arguably my favorite game of all time. Everything I said about Terra Mystica, just push it up a little higher. So it's like a 10.1. But it's like 14 asymmetric races, which just totally I love. You get all these ones. I've done a solo play on the channel. I played this as well with Isaac Childress. It's his favorite game. It's so good. You've got all these asymmetric ones. What else do I want to say about Gaia Project? And you're like moving out to planets of different colors, and then you're moving up these technology tracks to upgrade your abilities. And as you place planets, the Terra Mystica Gaia Project thing is as you place buildings out on the board, you're increasing your income. So you're getting all these bonuses for removing things from your board, and you're upgrading your income. So it's got that like engine build to it. But then you got to like bring things back in order to put other buildings out. And the asymmetry is the key part. The races are extremely asymmetrical. They have lots of differentiated things. This Power Bowl, a common board. Yeah, it's probably my favorite, like I don't know. It's probably my 3rd favorite game of all time behind Gloomhaven and Marvel Champions. So there you go. It's phenomenal. Highly suggest it. This $100 is absolutely worth it. There's so much gameplay in that box. It's real good. Spirit Island is probably the heaviest co-op I enjoy. It's card play. I've played this on the channel as well. It's card play. It's really unique powers. Again, it's that asymmetry that I love. So it's the co-op version of Gaia Project, if you will. Not really. It's a different thing. Well, kind of how you're controlling those things. The only negative on Spirit Island is at the end is like always a little bit of a letdown. Like, oh, and if they don't draw this and they didn't, and we win. And you don't really have to do anything. Your final turn is like going through the motions to win. So that's the only negative, but there's so many spirits and so many powers and so many things that the replayability here is amazing. I love this game solo, so I really like to play this one solo. And if you're into that, it works really, really well. Probably 2 spirits is better than 1, but you definitely want to start with 1. And if you're interested in this game, definitely check out Horizons of Spirit Island, which you can pick up in local stores or Target or something like that. And it's a great way to intro the game, although it is still very complex. So be warned that Horizons doesn't do for Spirit Island what Jaws of the Lion did for Gloomhaven. It is still complex in that box. They didn't bring the complexity down enough in my mind. So you got to be ready for a heavier game. I don't know what my favorite spirit is. I don't know that I know the spirits Rich is asking me as well as I know. Like, I don't think I connect with them like I do the Marvel heroes. So it's actually interesting when you ask me that. And I don't think I've even played through them a lot. So there's not a lot that I've replayed. Like, there's a lot of spirits. So I don't know that I'm at the point. I'm definitely not 4,000 plays like Marvel Champions. So I'm probably like 35 plays of Spirit Island or something like that, you know? Yeah. So I apologize. I don't know them. I certainly don't know them by name. All right, War of the Rings, 2nd edition. Did we see another War of the Ring? No. Okay. So this is another 2-player game. This is going to be same in that vein of Twilight Struggle. It's not nearly as much a card play game. It's very thematic to the story. So if you love Lord of the Rings, you're going to love this game. I taught this to somebody who really doesn't play a lot of games. It was like they brought over a 6-pack of beer. We sat, we're drinking beer, we're playing this game, and it was awesome. Like, they just were so into Lord of the Rings, they wanted to learn it, and we just had a blast playing through this. It really sticks to that story, so one side is very outmatched, and they're trying to get the ring to get down to Mordor to win the game. The other side's got the Nazgul trying to fight them, and they're fighting all these battles to try to just cut off the Free Peoples. It's really good, but something you're going to dive into. Again, this is a 4 and 5 hour 2-player game, but you kind of know it going into it. 8.5 for me. Better than that. Same thing as Star Wars Rebellion. This is a 9.5. I prefer Star Wars over Lord of the Rings for sure. I prefer Rebellion over War of the Ring, definitely. It's a very similar thing. One side is completely outmatched, and they're just trying to win these key victories. This has a lot of card play, a lot of rounds, a lot of action placement. You can get a Death Star. You can blow up planets fully. The expansion fixes the one issue the original game had, which was the combat was a little lackluster, and it makes the combat really solid and interesting. There's a ton of decisions. It's extremely thematic. You can capture Han Solo and put him in carbonite. You can do it to Chewie instead. You've got all your iconic characters. Boba Fett is in there. So there's a ton of theme in this box with great gameplay. It's a cat and mouse game. There's like not really hidden movement, but you've got a hidden base, and the Empire's trying to like send probe droids out. It's just phenomenal. Fantasy Flight Games. This is Ares Games. Spirit Island is Greater Than Games. Gaia Project is now Capstone. Through the Ages is Czech Games Edition. Dune Imperium, I've said I would say all these, is Direwolf? GMT, Great Western Trail is Plan B now, I think. So there's all of those. All right, so here we go. Yeah, I love Star Wars Rebellion. Let's see. Spirit Island is overrated. I agree with that Star Wars take. Is Rebellion more of a card game or board game? No, Rebellion's a board game. The cards drive the actions that you do on the board, but you're not playing cards solely to interact with each other's cards. I would say it's definitely more of a board game. I don't think Spirit Island is overrated. I think it's very good. But again, it's just a very heavy co-op. So if people don't like co-op, they don't like card games, they don't like heaviness, it could be tricky there. Ooh, nice. Paul from Gaming Rules is here. He's popping in as he's finishing the final editing on the Frosthaven video so we can all watch and learn, and I can stop making my mistakes. I played a few more games, but Paul was nice enough to join when we did our stream and correct some of those things. Somewhere I felt really bad. Like, I should have known those rules. So definitely check out those videos if you are playing Frosthaven. Well, Paul, you joined. We're doing the top 7 games. So I just went over Rebellion, which I think is better than War of the Ring here if I compared these two. I like Rebellion a lot better. Also, Rebellion plays a lot faster. I can typically play Rebellion in 2 to 2.5 hours. And I don't always want a faster game, but in this case, it just feels smoother to me. You get a lot of rounds in and whatnot. Jaws of the Lion, it's all Gloomhaven to me. Frosthaven, Gloomhaven, Jaws of the Lion. This is one of the greatest games of all time. I bounce back and forth between Champions and Gloomhaven as to which is my favorite. I think it's got to be Champions with the amount I play, but man, you throw in the fact that my wife loves Frosthaven and Gloomhaven as much as I do, it's a hard sell for me because I don't like playing games solo as much as I like playing them with other people. But I play a lot of Champions with other people too, obviously, online and whatnot. But Jaws of the Lion is the greatest thing that ever happened to Gloomhaven because the original Gloomhaven box, while it's amazing and phenomenal, it's a bit of a mess. And the first scenario is extremely hard. The rules are dense. There's a lot going on. It has all been streamlined. Paul, I don't know if you worked on the rulebook for Frosthaven, but I'm assuming that you did. I apologize that I don't know, but please let us know in the chat. The big issue, so Redacted here says, their big issue with Star Wars games is they typically drag. Yeah, that could be true. Epic Duels doesn't drag. That's the original version of Unmatched. Yeah, Rebellion doesn't drag except maybe on a first play, and those final turns can be a bit draggy, but usually there's a lot of tension in Star Wars Rebellion, so I don't really feel the drag when there's tension, like, oh, I don't know what to do, where do I have to go, where do I have to look, right? They're going to get me, so that doesn't make me feel drag, even though I'm spending a while making my decision. You had nothing to do with the rulebook for Frosthaven. Well, you've done a great job with many rulebooks, but yeah, all that stuff from the original Gloomhaven has been cleaned up. So Jaws of the Lion is the official place, like, I don't know. It's the best place to start. Those first 5 scenarios are amazing. Dice Tower Award side, we gave it a specific award for this, for like the greatest teaching ever. Way to teach a game ever. It's been demonstrated in Jaws of the Lion. Those first 5, 6 scenarios get you to understand the whole game in very, very nice chunks. So then you are up and running by there. It's 25 scenarios, which you can knock out in a decent time. So it's a campaign game that you can get done in the right amount of time. The one big thing missing from Jaws of the Lion is you never retire characters. So that will be an interesting thing, how people will play Jaws of the Lion, then go to Gloomhaven or Frosthaven. And if you ask which should I go to, I think the answer is Frosthaven. I think it's better than Gloomhaven in every way, basically. It's not saying much because Gloomhaven is really good, but it's just everything's tweaked a little bit better. But Jaws of the Lion is the place to start. It's amazing. Like every big game of this type should have this smaller version of it to teach you through those things. Terraforming Mars is very beloved. Like I said, I don't even want to compare it to Underwater Cities, so forget that. So Terraforming Mars is a very beloved game. It's a big, like, communal, you're building up Mars and trying to get things while earning points for your corporation. It's awesome because you have all these asymmetric starting powers that you can get. That even more if you put that prologue expansion in, which most people say is like a must, or an auto include is probably a better way to say that. If you don't have it, you'll be fine. It's got a cool solo over 14 rounds that plays really smooth and well. And it's got card drafting, which really gives it really neat interactions that you can do with other players. Highly suggest it. It's one of the favorite strategic games of all time. It's not one of my favorite strategic games of all time. Takes a little hit because my wife doesn't like to play space games, so it sits on our shelf a little bit more. But it is a phenomenal game, and you know, if you're looking to move into heavier games, I think it's a great place to go. Jaws of the Lion is from Cephalofair, Fantasy Flight Games. Terraforming Mars is Stronghold, which is now Indie Game Studios. Twilight Imperium 4th Edition. Twilight Imperium is just, it's one of those games that if you want to experience it, you should go experience it. It's real good. So you got to be ready. So it's going to be 6, 8, maybe 10 hours, depending on the player count. You really don't want to play it at like 2 and 3. That's okay, but you really want to get 4+. If you can get 5+, it's even better. You get a ton of interaction. It is the ultimate space epic opera game. Better than Eclipse, hands down. The factions are amazing. The 4th edition did such a great job, like just cleaning up all the little rough edges, kind of similar to like Frosthaven versus Gloomhaven, just making it that much better. It's got miniatures. So your best way to do this is just, like I said, plan an 8-hour day, plan a lunch or dinner break. You know, the rules are at 10 a.m. We're starting at 11 a.m. There's snacks going on. In this room, you can step away. There's going to be a clear dinner break at 4 o'clock in the afternoon. We're going to stop, and then we're going to finish up the game. You will have one of the greatest days of your life. If you get people who are all in on that, and this game will pile up there for you. I don't get that opportunity. I used to play it once or twice a year. I think I've played this game about 20, 25 times. That does include a lot of 2-player and 3-player games. I don't think they're as good. But that will be one of your memorable days. So if you're looking to really build that memory, maybe it's with family, maybe it's with friends, maybe somebody's like moving and this is like a last way to remember, it's an awesome way to go. Ark Nova, I have not rated. This was my game of the year in 2021. Oh my gosh, what year are we in? Welcome to the pandemic. And it still stands to be one of my favorite games. My only negative actually would be the solo mode. I don't really enjoy it, and there is a solo mode somewhere else for that. I haven't played Ark Nova. I didn't buy into the hype, and I'm afraid to play and be disappointed. Yeah, I don't think you'll be disappointed. I mean, if you like car games, you like all this game is amazing. It's so good. The one negative that people have, or the one thing that keeps people away, is It feels like it has this long-term strategy, but it's really a series of tactical decisions, and it is a race. You need to play into the race. You can't just say, well, I'm going to keep trying to find this card until it comes out if it's later in the game. It's a slow race. It's more like a marathon, but it is a race. Don't let it fool you. And you can get caught off guard if you don't do that. But yeah, this is one of the best games. You can see I think I have more than 10 10s, and I definitely have more than 10 9.5 and 10s. So making my top 10 games is tricky for me, and where Arc Nova is versus, Terra Mystica versus whatever. It's like, I don't know exactly. But when I think of this game, I think of one of the best games, and definitely one of the best games in the last few years. I absolutely adore it. If you don't know, sorry, it's from Capstone Games. You're building a zoo, you're drafting cards, you're playing those cards of various animals and projects. You are trying to both keep the animals safe, so you're doing conservation of animals, protecting them, sometimes releasing them back into the wild if need be, while also kind of like, not like driving your ticket sales, but having a park that people want to come to. It's not like a always for profit. It's just you want people to come visit your zoo. That's why you have it right there on display for people. Phenomenal game. Pandemic Legacy Season 1 is it's the best. No, it's the second best Legacy game of all time. My favorite one is Rise of Queensdale. But Pandemic Legacy was Z-Man Games, which I think now is under Asmodee. And this game has amazing narrative. The Legacy pieces are like exactly what you ever wanted in a Legacy game. And the best part of this game, so if you get a chance to play, or you hadn't had a chance and you do get a chance, is at the end of the first month. So you play January through December, 12 games, 2 times. If you lose, you get to play one more time, and then you move on. And the best part is at the end, roughly the best part. It's not the overall best part, but it's the best. One of the best parts is at the end of January, you open something and it changes Pandemic at its core. And it's like, okay, this is a core change to how Pandemic works. And it's so good. Like, you're there for the ride. And it continues to do that as you open more and more things. It changes the way things work. And the story is very, very, very good surrounding it. So it's a phenomenal experience. So again, kind of like how I talked about that one-day Twilight Imperium experience we would have, if you get a group that's all in for Season 1 and you can get this knocked out, 2 or 3 games in a day for whatever number of weeks that's going to take you per week or whatever, you will have one of the greatest, most memorable gaming experiences of your life. So it's really cool. Brass Birmingham, I rated, I can't remember, I must have given a 9.5 to Lancashire. So again, this is Roxley Games. I just like this one better with the beer. You can see most people agree it's the number 2. And Gloomhaven would now surpass for me with Frosthaven, but it's really the same thing. And this is a 10. It's a phenomenal game. It's a very long game. So it's a weird recommend, which is why if you don't think you're in for campaigns, I would go back to Jaws of the Lion, and you'll know if you're in or out, and you'll know if you have a group that's in or out with you. You can play through this solo, but I believe you would use 2 heroes, and you would lose out on a fundamental piece, which is every turn you pick 2 cards, and you're going to do a top action and a bottom action on each of those cards, and they have initiative numbers, which is going to be the order. And that blind play, interacting with other people, is just so good. Even though sometimes it's just, hey, I'm going to go quick. Oh, I'm going to go mid. And it doesn't really matter. But then you flip over all the enemies and you see what they do. And they have a lot of pizzazz to them. So that AI system is very bold, very strong. And yeah, I mean, I agree. Other than Marvel Champions, these 2 games waver back and forth for what my favorite games are. I don't know that they're similar. You really have to like card games to like Marvel Champions. You really have to be willing to play a campaign. The best thing that Gloomhaven does, though, is it gets you to want to retire your characters. And that system of getting to pick a new character and make a new character and level up them is really, it's amazing. Like, that you just get to this point where you're like, oh, I can't wait to retire this character. And RPGs, you would never do that. Imagine an RPG that said, like, you're going to retire your character 4 sessions from now. And you're like, I'm not doing that. I'm keeping my character. I made this character. This character is part of me, right? And this game gets you to do that. And it's really awesome. So that's what I love about Gloomhaven. Cool. There you go. An hour and a half. Top 100 games of all time. Oh, no, you're going to get a weird window. Sorry. Thanks, everybody, for joining me. Thanks, Paul. Thanks, Rich. Thanks, Redacted. Thanks, Brad. Thanks, Eric. Thanks, CN Spartan. And anybody else that is watching. If you watch this afterward and you find some interesting things, let me know. Hopefully you haven't played all these games. I pretty much have played them all. And you get good information on some of those. If you have a question about a game, you want to know if it might be good for you or whatever, and I didn't answer something because there were some that I went quicker through, please feel free to put it in the comments down below and I will respond to you. If you liked the video, if you can give a thumbs up, I would appreciate it. And if you like things like this, let me know. If you want me to do more like this, I'm going to do my top 10 solo games. Eric here in the chat had asked me to do that, and I thought this would be a good way to do it without having the games physically in front of me. So I will do more lists like this, so let me know if you enjoy that. And if you haven't subscribed to the channel, please do so. I would love it and love to bring you more of these things. Tomorrow we're going to do a Marvel Champions deck building live stream. So it'll be Steve, Brian, Eric, and myself. We're going to build decks live. We're not going to play the decks. We're just going to build some of the decks, and maybe at some point we'll get a chance to play those decks. But I wanted to try to do something different, so join us for that tomorrow night and whatnot. All right, everybody, thanks so much. This is the top 100 games of Board Game Geek. Hopefully I gave you some good information. Like I said, I played many of them. I feel like I have a lot of insight. So hopefully it's a place I can help you. And I just wanted to see if I could get through all that. Thanks, Rich. He says it was great. I had a fun time talking about the games. The only thing I like doing, no, I don't like talking about more. The only thing I like doing as much as playing games is talking about games. So this was fun to be able to do. And I don't always get a chance to do it on the channel. So I'll try to do some more things like this. All right. Thanks, everybody. My name is the Brandt. And until next time, I hope you step into the portal. Bye. See you.